Greetings, 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 blade lovers, and particularly Tanto lovers. By the way, that's Tanto and not Tanto, but I'm not going to teach you how to speak Japanese today because my vocabulary in that language is very limited as well. But coming from the Japanese martial arts as I have, I do know how to pronounce some terminologies. And the A is always a broad A. There's no eh in Japanese, is what I've been told by people that speak the language and interpret. But that's not why we're here today. We're here because I posted a video on this knife some months back in 2022, and it's now 2023. And I'm still having people chiming in, leaving comments saying, that's not a Tanto or Tanto. Well, this happens to be an Effengrau knife that I don't collect Effengraus, but I liked the blade shape, saw it on Amazon, and I do understand from some people that this is actually a clone of another knife. But that's not why we're here today either. We're here to discuss what constitutes a Tanto knife. Because I called this a Tanto because it is ever so close to a traditional Japanese Tanto, which gained its profile from the katana sword and the wakizashi sword, these being knives. Now, when you think Tanto, you may be thinking of that style point, the chisel point. Well, it's pretty safe to say that before about 1982 or 83, that point didn't exist on a knife-sized edged weapon. Where you found it was here. These are sword tips, and I have to thank reliks.com. And these are examples of sword tips, and if you look down here, now here's the rounded ones that you typically see on a sword, but here are some others referred to as ibuki, ikari, and kamasu. You are starting to see these since the 80s on knives, like the Koban by Cold Steel there. But traditionally, the Tantos did not have that blade shape. It was an armor-piercing point used on swords. Now, there are companies out there producing Tanto knives. This is one by Williams. Chris Williams designed this, and that's an Osuraku Zukuri style blade. Notice that it has a demarcation here where the blade grind changes, kind of like this Tanto, but way back here, and it yields a much longer, pointier blade. So that's considered to be a Tanto. But Bob Terzola designed this one for Civivi, and this is referred to as the tamashii, which means knife, I believe, in Japanese. And that's an example of a Tanto. It's sold as a Tanto. It's sold as a Japanese-inspired blade design. Here's a folder, the Hazakuri, or Hazakura, I believe, by Concept Knives, designed by Max Tkachuk. And that is a very typical Japanese grind, Tanto grind. If Tanto is the knife-sized weapon, and that is the grind, then that's a Tanto. Well, we're seeing some radical stuff these days too. Like this mini Paragon by Kaiser. And that's a crazy knife. Who would know what to call that except, yep, got the chisel point. So we could call it a recurve Tanto. We can back out a little bit. There we go. Oh yeah, got a few more. Not going to quit there. So here we have the HZ6 by Columbia River and designed by James Williams. Classic Tanto styled knife in the style of what is the style? Otonashi no Ken. And there's an Otonashi Kozura. Otonashi no Ken, and, well, I'm forgetting all the exact names. I knew that would happen. But I'll put a few links in the description to the places where you can go and see the various traditional Japanese style Tantos. One more. Here is the Ryu by Fox Knives, designed by Ken Vihikate, and it is referred to in all the literature as a Tanto styled knife. Very classic. Once again, we got the swedge on the top. We got the belly forward, got the point more or less in a line. Some of them are upturned. And I think that is most of the examples I have, although we'll show you this yokai made by Boker and Alessandra De Santis design, and that has that Tanto point that you are most familiar with. So Lynn Thompson kind of reinvented the Tanto by taking the armor-piercing point of a katana or longer sword or a wakizashi and placing it on the knife. Before that time, and by the way, I was around and collecting knives and doing martial arts in the 80s, 70s and 80s. So I've got some personal history with this. I watched it evolve. I was actually asked by Lynn Thompson to do an article on the Tanto when it came out, which I did. And I believe it was 1984, in the height of the popularity of the Tanto and the Bally Song. That was another up-and-coming knife at the time, and the only advertisement for it was in the magazines. I have to say, probably people were a little more knowledgeable then of what had transpired, particularly if you were in the Japanese martial arts. You knew that when you were talking Tanto, you were talking about something similar to this. Many of which had the cord-wrapped handles. Some had a lacquered hardwood handle, what have you. But again, when you hear the word Tanto nowadays, everybody to a person, pretty much, is thinking about this. And yeah, we can call that a Tanto. It is a Tanto. But I think the terminology that's being accepted pretty much by and large these days is Americanized Tanto, because of the impact that Cold Steel and Lynn Thompson had on that design. So there you go, kind of in a nutshell. By no means is this a treatise or a complete coverage of the whole history of Japanese blades, but hopefully it'll get you started, and you may not always say that that's not a Tanto. It may be a utility knife to somebody else, but I can see the design notes for me that reference it as a Tanto. Well, folks, there you go. Quick overview of the Tanto. Feel free to chime in, but try to refrain from telling me that these are not Tantos. Thank you very much. I'll be back with you soon. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already.